California has paid at least $20 billion in fraudulent unemployment benefits since the start of the pandemic. The director of California's Employment Development Department revealed the number to state lawmakers during an oversight hearing earlier this week. It amounts to more than 11% of the unemployment benefits the state paid out since March of 2020. Adam Beam writes about this in a recent article. He is a California reporter for the Associated Press. Adam, thanks for being here. So first off, tell us what's going on. Are these people who aren't really unemployed, or are they engaging in identity theft and claiming benefits that should rightfully belong to someone else?
Well, it's all of the above. I mean, I think you have some very sophisticated criminal networks, maybe that are based overseas, that are doing this. I think you also have just maybe some small-time operators who notice an opportunity that the state was just handing out, and the state and the federal government just sending billions of dollars out the door with little oversight into trying to stop fraud. And I think people took advantage of that.
Well, your article mentioned that hundreds of millions of dollars went to people in prison, including some of whom were on death row. What more can you tell us about this strange story?
Well, unlike most states, California's unemployment agency did not cross-check unemployment claims with a list of people who are in prison, because obviously if you are incarcerated, you are ineligible to receive unemployment benefits. And so while many other states already do this, California didn't. And so there were a lot of criminals that took advantage of that. Now, there's evidence that some of these inmates were willing participants in this, and that they provided their names and their social security numbers to people on the outside who were able to claim these payments in their names. And then there's also evidence that it was identity theft. There was, we have a notorious person on death row here by the name of Scott Peterson, you probably have heard of. And there was somebody filed a claim in his name for unemployment benefits. And his lawyer swears that his client had nothing to do with it. It was most likely a case of identity theft.
Well, what happens now, Adam? Is the money gone?
Most likely. I mean, they're trying to get it back. There's a team of prosecutors statewide, head by a former U.S. attorney, that are trying to investigate these cases. But in most of these cases, the money has been spent or it's gone, and it's going to be very difficult to get this money back.
So what is the state of California doing to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again, but that people who are rightfully entitled to these benefits actually still get them?
Yeah, because that's been the big problem, is California has rushed to try to get these payments out. And in their rush, they have neglected some of the important safeguards that are needed to stop fraud. And so the question is, how do you do that? What's the balance of trying to get the money to people that actually need it versus people who are fraudulent? And so what they've done is they've implemented some new security measures. They've implemented some new software that is better able to identify and verify people's identity. So that's helped a lot. The other thing they've done is they made a couple of changes during the middle of this pandemic, where they said, we're not going to check people's, we're not going to require people to certify every 2 weeks. We're not going to require because we're trying to speed up the process. And so they've kind of put those safeguards back in place. They suspended some rules early, and now they put those rules back in place. And also, they've really tried to work hard just to work with other agencies in the state. Like there's a law that was passed earlier this year that requires the corrections department to begin sharing names of inmates with the unemployment agency, so they can begin cross-check that. And another one that's going to be going into place probably in a couple of years is they're going to require or have an option for people to get their benefits through direct deposit. Because what's happening now is they're mostly getting it on a debit card, which makes it very easy for people to intercept that and to use it. But if it's a direct deposit option, it'd be much less harder to use fraud in that way.
Because then they actually have a bank account in their name that's being deposited into. I want to follow up on that point, Adam, because there are also many people who've paid into the system who are struggling right now, but they're having trouble receiving benefits. Tell us why that is and what's being done to correct for that issue. Because as much as it's a problem that there's fraud, people who are deserving of these benefits shouldn't face such terrible hurdles in order to actually get the benefits that they're entitled to.
Well, you got to remember, before this pandemic began, California had historic low unemployment rate. I mean, it was less than 4% in some places. And so there wasn't really that much of a focus on the unemployment agency because there weren't that many people applying. And then in the span of 2 months, California lost more than 2 million jobs. It was unprecedented. And all of a sudden, the agency was flooded. I mean, to date, they have had over 25 million applications. They paid out more than $178 billion in payments. And it was just too much for this agency to keep up with. And you had situations where people they couldn't reach anybody, they couldn't call anybody to get into a call center. Mm-hmm. And they've made a lot of progress in that regard. But one thing they're still struggling with is a lot of times the agency has to interview people to make sure that to verify that they are who they are, to try to clear up any problems with their application. And right now, the interview, to get an interview with EDD, the agency that we're talking about here, it takes 26 weeks, 6 months in order for you to get an interview. And as the EDD director said earlier this week, that's unacceptable. And they're trying hard to make some progress in that regard.
Well, especially given what you've said about identity theft and people potentially filing for somebody who actually needs it and receiving that, trying to clarify all of that mess with that type of a time lag, really a serious problem on all fronts. Adam Beam, thank you.
Thank you.